Okay, so third episode, Long Road Ahead. So without the St. John's, now the bandits are messing with the group and they don't have like an official name. But Kenny is like, we need to move around. Like we can't just be here. So, which is always smart. You got to stay moving. Like standing still, that's no. So because it's not just zombies you have to worry about. You have to worry about other people too. So Lily tells Lee that bandits have someone has been slipping the bandits medical supplies. But before they can find out, a horde attacks them. They leave in the RV. They have to leave most of their supplies behind. The horde attacks them plus bandits. So it's just, it's messed up. And then Katya tells Lee that Duck got bit. And this is somebody's fault. And it sucks because he's such a nincompoop. You caused so many casualties and you've honestly brought nothing to the group. You're just another breathing body and you've been no help, pointless. As a penny with a hole in it. It's messed up because Duck was, he was an annoying little kid, but he was still a kid. Like, it sucks. Lily's still a jerk. She wants to know who was it that was stealing the supplies? Who was it that was giving the supplies to the bandits? Since I kept Carly. This girl shoots Carly.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
There should have been an option to jump her because it was either, what's wrong with you? Or you're coming with us? Or Leah was like,
you can't come with us.
Girl, that's all you said? Because they were just arguing back and forth and then she just shot her point blank. This is crazy. He's crazy. Like, oh my God. And so I left her and he should have backed that car up because girl, like, Carly has done nothing but been a team player. She's helped be on the offense. She's been very smart. Lily was smart too in teaching the characters how to fend for themselves, but she was too erratic. And a lot of people, in the game, they said that Kenny was, I don't know if erratic was the word, but I feel like Lily was more erratic than Kenny. Kenny was definitely a hothead for sure. To do that point blank, that's crazy. But girl, just Kenny, man, Kenny too. Like, it's the end of the world. It's a zombie apocalypse. Like, you can't expect level-headedness at this point. I left her behind. And so as they traverse the land, they come across a train. And then there's this guy in there named Chuck. It says homeless survivor, which is so funny because who has a home? I mean, unless like they live in like, a certain area, but they're homeless out in the open. They don't have a home because their home is gone. They say on this fandom, Lee and Kenny figure out how to move the train. And it says if player left with Lily, then she flees from the others in the RV, which is weird because they were driving straight. So she probably would have just backed up and turned around. Since I left her, all we did was we got on the train and we drove off. So the RV was inconsequential and Lily also was inconsequential to our journey forward. So like I said, they're on that train and Duck is getting worse. So you have the option to either use a weapon to, it's so sad because he was such an innocent kid. So either you can do it, Lee can do it, Kenny can do it, Katya was gonna do it, but she does it to herself instead. And there's just like you can kill a vampire a certain way, you can do it to a person so they don't come back. Oh my gosh, it's so sad. I chose to leave him because I didn't want to do that. That was terrible. Even like there's a scene where they get to a house and it was so sad. It was like a kid in the attic. I didn't do anything with that either. They gave him a proper burial next to the family dog because it was sad. And I'm like, is this rated mature? Because they do curse a lot. They don't have any explicit, they just curse a lot. And then come to find out, it was Ben. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but it was Ben who was slipping them stuff. Slipping the bandits medicine. I forgot why he said he did it. I guess to keep them off the team's back. So fast forward, they encounter a bridge with a tanker car, and that's where they meet Omid and Krista. And then basically they help them dismount the tanker car, but that noise brings the horde to them. And I think this is where like Chuck like sacrifices himself. He's very inconsequential. He tells Lee to teach Clementine how to defend herself and to cut her hair because having long hair in a zombie apocalypse is not good because it can get caught and the zombies can grab you. Clementine's walkie-talkie that she had from the beginning of the story perks up and there's a voice that knows what she's doing because she has been talking to them. The next chapter is around every corner. They finally get to Savannah and there's a person who's ringing a bell and they've been talking to Clementine and they let them know like, hey, walkers are coming. This is what I didn't like because Ben is already a piece of crap. I didn't like this. It says, overrun by walkers, Ben panics and leaves Clementine, causing Chuck to be separated. Okay, Chuck dies now. To save her, everybody makes their way to an empty mansion, and then they ended up getting inside. That's when they find that young Walker who was a kid. Okay, so they get to the point where they're in that mansion, and that's when they meet the poor Walker boy who was upstairs. And then so Lee and Kenny were trying to find a boat so they can go out. So I guess they were really late to the party because boats and parts had already been stripped. So they went to another area to find, to scavenge. And it was weird. They had all these walkers on spikes. That's where they met Molly. And then Molly told them about Crawford and how this is like a really militant society and it's only able-bodied adults in every sense of the word. So you can't be sick or old or anything. They had to split up, and then Lee ended up in the sewers, and then he found out that there is another group of people who used to live in Crawford, but they all had cancer. And so, or they survived cancer. So they were living in the sewers. It was really interesting because I didn't know sewers were that big where you could just stand up and like exist. It was just like an underground city. Vernon was a doctor. He came out to help get some supplies to help Omid. And so their whole plan was to sneak into Crawford. And you can bring Clementine or you're not. And then Crawford is overrun by walkers. And they hide in the old school, and then they get all this information and get the backstory on who Molly is, and that's not important. And so they see that the walkers overran Crawford. And then Ben is feeling bad for himself because he caused all this stuff, and he confesses his sins to Kenny because he just couldn't hold it anymore. And then Vernon's like, hey, we've been surviving this long, why don't I take Clementine off her hands? And I would first of all be so offended because I'm like, take her off my hands. This is my daughter at this point. Like, what are you talking about? And nothing happened to them for Vernon to feel that way, to even say that to Lee. So I was weirded out by that. And then the choice I made was I wasn't going to say anything. He tells Clementine, either we're going to find your parents or we're going to not. So he goes to sleep, and then they wake up and he finds that Clementine is gone. Her hat and her walkie-talkie are outside. So as he goes to reach for the hat, a walker comes from the bushes and bites his wrist. So I chose not to say anything because I didn't know if they were going to just like go crazy and attack, because Kenny would have understood, because Kenny will just let it run its course and then the person will die. But Krista and Omid, I wasn't sure, and I didn't think about Ben either. So when I did it, I just went it alone. He ended up amputating his arm at the doggone, like here, like he got bit here. I'm like, why not just this? And then I thought about it. Why would he do that? He handicapped himself more, because there were times he had to jump and climb, and using one arm, you're already like getting weaker by the second. You're making yourself even weaker by having one less limb. I thought it was so stupid. And so it was dumb. And then the last episode, season 1, is No Time Left. The stranger on the walkie-talkie claims that they're rescuing Clementine from Lee. He eventually tells him that he got bit, and he finds Clementine at the Marsh Hotel. And at the Marsh Hotel, you find who kidnapped Clementine. And the guy's like, I was the owner of that station wagon your group stole from me, and that caused my wife and daughter to leave me, and then the zombies got them, and now I'm gone crazy. And so the guy was saying to Lee, I could be a better father, but your wife and daughter died. You couldn't protect them, so you're supposed to get a second chance with someone else's kid? I don't think so. So that's what happened with him. They took him out because he was no good. And then meanwhile, Lee is still turning, and when it got to the point where Clementine had the choice to stop Lee from turning or just to let him or to leave him, I left Lee. I knew Lee was gonna die. I didn't know I had to kill him. So I was just like, no. And so I just left him, and it was so sad. I'm just like, oh. And then he gave her some advice, and then when she escaped, the last episode of the season is when she sees 2 people walking, assumedly Omid and Krista. She looks hopeful, and then it cuts to black. And that is season 1 of The Walking Dead. I love it. I might play it again for certain episodes. And I will talk about season 2 after this. So stay tuned, everyone.